So, hi there, this is Jen from modernmedicinelady.com, and this is my very first blab. And today is the full moon in Virgo. It happened earlier today at 1:21 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And one of my subscribers, Terry, had asked the question before jumping on about what makes full moons so powerful. And one of the things that makes full moons so powerful is that all full moons are going to be in the sign opposing what the sun sign is. And so if you think about the idea of tension between two sides, for example, this moon is in Virgo, but the sun is in Pisces. So there's this incredible amount of energy that is pulling between the two sides of these moons. And this gives a lot of extra tension, which then gives us, it's almost like if you think about an elastic or a slingshot or something, if you think about the way that that energy pulling back is going to give you more momentum and more force than if everything is in harmony. So there's a great deal of power in working with a full moon, and that's part of why I decided to start today, but also working with and starting with doing blabs on Mondays. So I figured I'd jump right in and start by talking about one of the things I've been noticing, which is this phenomenon lately around the difference between following formulas for success and growth and basically jumping on and doing what everybody else does versus really listening to our personal intuition and our own guidance about how to make things happen and how to manifest our dreams and our ideas. And oh, thanks, Terry. That's great. And so good to see you here. Thank you so much for showing up. Yay. Yeah, but what I was thinking about talking about with this full moon is the difference between our intuition and our organic process of really following what feels right to us versus sort of purchasing a program that's coming out of the can and following the rules that everybody else is following. Because I've been noticing lately, I don't know if you spend much time around in social media and online, but one of the things I've been really seeing is just, it just seems like everybody has kind of the same protocol and the same. Yes, Nikki, this is where you ask questions. Welcome. And you're a Virgo sun and a Libra moon and a Cancer rising. Oh, God bless you for being a Cancer rising. That can always be somewhat challenging. I think Cancer is just such a deep, deep emotion. And with the Virgo sun, obviously, you're going to be affected by this full moon really intensely because this moon is in Virgo. And then having the Pisces sun is also a water sign with your Cancer rising. It's going to mean that this particular moon is going to be affecting you and probably is going to be yanking your chain a little bit, I'm imagining. So, yes. I'm just reading, Nikki, I'm just reading what you're saying about death in the family and mom being really sick and financial issues and being sick with a bad cold and wondering what's going on. Well, I think we're really going through an amazing period of change. And I think as a planet, we're going through a time of almost like birth contractions. And it's not always that comfortable when we're going through transformation and we're going through transition. I also like to think of colds personally as generally it's about up-leveling, shifting, in my experience, colds have a way of being about our body shifting and using the cold as a way to adjust and transform. And when I surrender to a cold and let it sort of run through the process, a lot of times I find that it's preparing me for transformation and preparing me for a new way of being. I have also noticed, and I don't know if you've discovered this, but for me, that colds and also any other kind of illness, but that in my personal experience, we are going to set boundaries in healthy ways, or we're going to set boundaries in not so healthy or not so conscious ways. And I know for myself that the cold is almost always the thing that comes on when I am in a place where I need more support, where I need to take a break, where I've been pushing myself too hard and I'm just trying to push myself through. And the cold is the thing that finally says, would you just cut it out and slow the hell down? And that is, please excuse my language for those of you, if you don't know me, I'm definitely somebody who has a salty language, partially because I've been working in a tattoo studio for many, many years, and I swear like a sailor. So I'll work hard not to swear at you guys. And yeah, thank you, Nikki, for that. Makes a lot of sense. I appreciate it. And Terry too. It's so good to be here, and it is so delightful to see you both. Yeah. So I just have been noticing that a lot of people are feeling frustrated right now. Let's see, Nikki just said, so in my experience, it's pretty normal for a powerful positive transformation to be followed by big challenges. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my God, yes. So here's my theory. Love draws out that which is unlike love. And it brings anything to the surface that is not in alignment with it. The way I first discovered this, when I started working with, or noticed that every time when I first started doing spiritual work, and especially started doing manifestation and magical work, it seemed to me that every time the group that I was working with, because I was part of this circle, every single time they would do some kind of major like ceremony or celebration or prayer, manifestation exercise around drawing in more money, it never failed that basically the stuff would hit the fan right afterwards. And I noticed that this was something that was happening for people over and over and over again, was that there was this way that the challenges were really were like coming up in their face. And what I concluded from this, what I really believe, is that when we seek to manifest a goal, we see the goal sort of at the top. I'm pointing upwards, except I'm pointing into my light. We see our goal. And if you imagine it's like on the top shelf of a closet and you're reaching up for that goal and you're trying to grab it, there's going to be so many things a lot of times between you and that goal on that closet shelf. And when you pull that thing down towards you, all kinds of other stuff has this way of falling down on your head. And I believe sincerely, wholeheartedly, that when we start going after positive transformation, when we start going after change, all of the stuff that is not in alignment with that positivity is going to rise up to the surface or is going to fall down on our head. And then it becomes our choice whether we just crawl back into our hidey hole and we go and avoid dealing with stuff, or if we go, okay, here this is in front of me and I need to deal with this now. And this actually really leads me to sort of the topic of what I wanted to talk about tonight, which is this idea of following a formula, like buying somebody's, $2,000 course on, if you follow this rule, this rule, this rule, this rule, bam, you're going to be super successful, versus listening to your own intuition and following a much more organic process for growth. Now, I'm not saying that it has to necessarily be either or, because I think that having formulas and strategies is incredibly important for manifesting your goals, for creating more prosperity and abundance in your life. But I think that it is crucial that you do this with the awareness that, hi, Debbie, welcome. So glad to have you here. I'm just talking about the way that and hi there. So I'm just talking about the way that when we have natural and sort of follow our own intuition versus just following a formula, that there's a way, but going back to say that while a formula can be helpful, if there isn't some kind of tools in place for dealing with all the stuff that's going to come up once you start implementing that formula, it's going to be very frustrating, and it's going to be hard to keep it going, and it's going to be hard to be effective. So a formula alone, a super successful $1,800, $2,900, $2,000, whatever program that's saying follow my rules and you're going to be totally successful, without being aware that when we start going after our dreams and we start pursuing our goals, we're going to be dealing with feelings. We're going to be dealing with all of the issues that are in the background, all of the backstory that comes up for us around feeling worthy of asking for money, or feeling worthy of going after our dreams, feeling worthy of pursuing the things that matter to us. And so it's going to bring up our stuff. And formulas alone don't generally have a system for dealing with all of the emotional things that come up around that. So I'm wondering if that makes sense to you guys. And if anybody else has any questions. So Nikki is just saying, thank you, that helps so much. That's just where I am, dealing with all the stuff that's falling out of the closet. Oh, hells yeah. Yeah. And that is why I personally am such an incredible fan of tapping and using EFT for clearing this kind of stuff, because not only are we dealing with the contemporary stuff that's falling down on the top of our head in our closet, but we're often using or dealing with so many of the other emotional components that are from way, way, way back. And so tapping, which if you go to my website, www.modernmedicinelady.com, you can learn a lot more about that if you're not already familiar with it, is a remarkably elegant tool for addressing things from both the present and from the past. So now Skittles CRT is at a bit of a loss because she doesn't know about moon, sun, etc. Where do you even start? Well, you can go to, I personally have gone to, in terms of astrology, I've gone to astro.com. And as long as you know where you were born, roughly the time you were born, the day, obviously you need to know the day you were born. You can actually cast your chart for free on astro.com, and you can start learning a lot about yourself. But even if you do not know anything about your chart, when you start being aware of the fact that full moons are going to be more intense and new moons are going to be a time for planting seeds and getting things started, and new moons are more of a time for purification, and they're always going to be falling 2 weeks apart, you can actually start using this energy to your advantage, even if you don't totally understand how it's going to impact your own personal chart. So, for example, this is the full moon in Virgo, and and every astrologer is going to have a different opinion about what they think the full moon in Virgo is about. But I like to look at it as, the way I think of it is that you have the full moons, which are the time of great power, because there's the tension between the opposing sun sign and the sign that the full moon is in. And so there's a great deal of tension and momentum with that. And that is going to either be in an earth, an air, a fire, or a water sign. So for example, we have a full moon in Virgo. That means that it is an earth sign. And Virgo in particular is the sign of service. It is the sign of order. It's the sign of organization. It's the sign of things being in a state of balance. So when we work with the Virgo energy with this full moon, my key word for this moon is nourish. Now, I think that anybody who's living, and I'm pretty sure that all of us who are here on this chat, on this blab tonight, are all in the Northern Hemisphere. So we're all in winter right now. And so with this full moon in Virgo, what we can do is we can use this energy to really turn back to self-care, to really turn back to really nourishing and nurturing and feeding and supporting ourselves, and just really letting ourselves do this. And the moon is going to remain in Virgo until tomorrow afternoon. I believe, I think it's about sometime around 5:30 tomorrow, it's going to go over into Libra. And that's going to be a much more sort of even, calming, balancing energy that's going to be coming from that. But you can use this energy of the full moon in Libra for the next roughly 24 hours to nourish yourself, to recharge yourself, to renew yourself. So this is a really good time to do things like turn to fruits and vegetables and eat some, and steal some extra sleep for yourself. Maybe schedule an appointment to get a good massage. What ways can you nurture and nourish and support yourself right now? Hi there, June. Welcome. So glad you made it. So we're just talking about a bunch of different stuff. We're talking about the impact of manifestation and how often when we go after our dreams, we bring a whole bunch of crap down on the top of our head, and how that works. And we're also talking about how to work with the energy of this particular full moon in Virgo for self-care and self-love and really being able to honor ourselves in this process. Excellent. Yeah. And so what I was saying about the, let's see. So we were talking about working with the moon. And so when you have a moon in an earth sign, so the way I like to look at it is that you can start thinking about it in terms of the new moon being the time of new beginnings, but also of purification, and it's a time where the sun sign and the moon sign are actually in the same sign. So you can work with that knowing that it's a time of harmony, whereas the full moon is more of a time of powerful tension. And then you want to think about what the moon is in. Like I said, this is a Virgo full moon, which means that we're going to be dealing with earth issues. Earth issues are things about the body. People are asking me questions, June, and then I'm responding to them. So, and I'm talking about sort of manifestation using the moon and also just metaphysical responses, questions, magical, how to sort of work with healing and magic. So anyway, with the moon, an earth moon, you're going to be dealing with physical manifestation. You're going to be dealing with abundance, wealth, prosperity, body-related things. When you're dealing with water moons, you're going to be dealing with things that are more emotional and intuitive. When you're dealing with fire, you're going to be dealing with action, and fire full moons are a great time for really going for it. And I will give you guys a heads up about something that's going to be happening in when the sun is in Gemini, and that is that we're going to have 2 full moons in Sagittarius this summer. And that is going to be a very, very potent time for really going for your dreams. So if you're an entrepreneur, if you are somebody who is on a creative process, if you're doing anything that's really exciting, it is going to be a potent time for putting things out there. So because we're going to have not just 1, but 2 full moons in Sagittarius, which are fire moons, but they're also moons about really going after your dreams and going after your goals. So that's going to be a very exciting and very powerful time. So, yeah. The reason I'm talking about, I'm not necessarily giving out astrology updates as much as I'm talking about the impact. June just asked if I'm giving out astrology updates. And what I'm doing is I'm just talking about the fact that we are in a full moon in Virgo right now. And hi there, Motivate You. And welcome. So I think hopefully my conversation or what I was talking about in terms of working with the moon makes sense to everybody, and how you can just kind of start by thinking in terms of, is it an earth, an air, a fire, or a water sign, and is it a new moon or a full moon? And then, you can keep on going into it further and further and further. I've been around astrology now for a really long time, and I still feel like I've got more to learn. It's such an incredible process, but I come at it as a tarot reader and somebody who'd been working with tarot cards for a very long time. So I really think about it in terms of the four elements and the ways that the elements relate to everything. So that has been particularly effective for me. Excellent. I started reading the tarot when I was a young whippersnapper. I've been working with the tarot for over 35 years now. And I actually created a tarot deck called the Healing Tarot, which was a really satisfying thing to do. It took me, I started, it's a photographic deck using masks and sets and everything. And it was a process that I started doing the art. Oh, cool, June. Do you have a link for it? I'd love to look at it at some point. And you can reach me at Jen, Jen, at modernmedicinelady.com if you want to just, send me a link to your deck. I'd love to see it. So, yeah, sure, Mel. I would love to do a little tarot reading. Excellent. And thank you, June. Let's see. Okay. I will pull out a card. Hopefully this isn't the deck that's missing 2 or 3 cards. So, how about, Mel, I will pull a card for you, and then if anybody else wants me to pull a card for them, I'd be happy to do that. Mel, is there anything in particular? Oh, excellent, Nikki. I'd love to. Okay, so I have my deck in front of me. And yes, I will gladly. And is it Skittles cart or, okay. To do with celebration. Okay. Oh, it's Debbie. Okay. Thank you, Debbie. I thought it might be you, Debbie, but I wasn't sure. Okay. So, Mel, I'm going to pull a card for you in regards to celebration. And the card that I got is the reversed Ace of Swords. And I like to think of this as the card of I call it the definition card. And it is very much a card about planting that mental seed of clarity and focus and really starting the whole process. So I find that the Ace of Swords is a card that's really saying, okay, what needs to be planned? Yes, it is upside down. And that means that it's reversed. And what that generally means is that you're at the inception of something, and it's more of an interior process as opposed to something that's an exterior process. So I would say if your question is regarding celebration, there's probably a bit of mental preparation, research, strategy, anticipation ahead of you before the full launch is going to be possible. The way I like to describe reversed cards or upside down cards is that I like to think of them as if your life was, or this card was a car, it would be in the shop right now. It's a time of getting things in order, getting your ducks in a row, and bringing things into clarity and focus. And the Ace of Swords is the card of sort of the primary intellect, the primary seed of a plan, of a beginning, of a new start. So are you on the right path? I would say yes, you are on the right path. and you've got your work cut out for you. But the thing about an ace is that it is at the very beginning of something, and it is a card about really getting very clear. So I would say that there may be some real scrutinizing necessary for you to get more clear about where you want to be going and what you want to be doing with this. That there's some really like getting very, very clear about your path before it's going to make total sense. But with it, anytime you get an ace, it's generally a good sign that things are going to be possible because it is the beginning of something. But with it reversed, it generally means there may need to be some tweaking and adjusting. So I'm glad that makes sense to you. Okay, so let's see. Nikki is the next one. So we're going to pull a card for Nikki. Oh, Nikki, you got the world. And interestingly, it is also reversed. It may have to do with the fact that I just didn't shuffle the deck correctly, but who knows? Again, like I said, when it comes to, and I'm going to show it to you upright, when it comes to reversed cards, the way I interpret them is that it's generally about the fact that things are in process and that you're in the emotional and an internal process, that it's an introverted stage as opposed to an extroverted stage. So I would say that you're at a point right now where the way I like to think of the world is that it's about going through, you've gone through a great deal of process. You've gone through an initiatory process, and now you're kind of at that stage where you're kind of being pulled back and up, where you can look at the whole picture and see it before you dive back in where the Fool card is. And so with it being reversed, this is that period of time of really evaluating, really questioning a lot of stuff. I mean, there's probably a ton of questions going on for you right now about what is working for me, what is not working for me, what do I love, what do I not love, what is true for me. And I would say that is, I'm so glad that is true, but especially like what matters. And I think that is such a crucial question for us to be asking ourselves, and particularly with the World card, is what really matters to me? What is important? What do I want to be focusing on? I just think that is such an incredibly important question, because then once we really know our big why, once we know what really matters to us, then we can be asking ourselves with every single choice, every single action, every single thing we do, is this in alignment with what matters to me? Does this support and feed my vision of what I want to create? Or is this something that is either in opposition to it, or is just simply a distraction that is keeping me away from achieving my goals? So I think that really taking this time to do some journaling, and especially just really thinking about what matters, and then looking at all of the different aspects of life and just evaluating every single piece, brings us back around to the question of, is this in alignment? Do I keep it, or do I let it go? So Nikki, I would imagine that you've probably got, for lack of a better word, a purge ahead of you. And I don't mean sort of that cheesy kind of like horror movie concept of it, but it's more like, it really seems to me like there's going to be where the rubber hits the road going on, where it's going to be, what do I want to keep? What do I want to let go of? And that leads me way back to talking about the whole bringing things down on the top of our head. And I just want to say that in my personal experience, decluttering on a physical level is so profoundly powerful when it comes to manifestation. It is amazing how much getting our physical house in order affects our ability to get our emotional house in order and our financial house in order, and also for us to really create the room for prosperity in our life. It's who'd have thunk that cleaning your room would actually generate money? But I must say, from my own personal experience, the more I eliminate the energy blocks that are holding on to me, or the things that I've been carrying around for ridiculous ridiculous sentimental reasons that have nothing to do with my own personal, what's really aligned for me now, the more the perfect clients show up for me, the more that other things just manifest in my life. So I just wanted to make a plug for decluttering and also really looking at everything and saying, does this fit with what I want? Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, Debbie, I started, oh, you're so welcome, Nikki. Debbie, I started decluttering last year. I think I started reading Marie Kondo's book, The Magical Art of Tidying Up, which is adorably charming. But my God, that woman seems like she's just like, I don't know, she is neurotic. But yeah, but I was so inspired. And then I kind of hit a block when we went and unpacked we moved my parents and had to do a whole bunch of unloading stuff out of their house. And I came back to my house with my parents' memorabilia, vintage dresses and other things. And I just kind of got my wheels just got completely stuck in the mud. And I just sent an email to somebody who sells vintage clothing with a photograph of a bunch of vintage gowns saying, hey there, can you help me? But it's amazing the ways that I think we can get just stopped in our tracks with things when even one little thing changes or some person shows up and there's some kind of an emotional connection to something. So I'm imagining, so getting back to cards, I've read for Nikki and I've read for Mel. I'm going to pull a card now for Debbie. And you got the Four of Cups, which is the Hope card. And I love this card. This is the card about allowing your guidance to come to you by relaxing into the process and really letting yourself, it's sort of, instead of looking to the obvious, taking the time to go into a place of meditation, to go into a place of possibility, and that the guidance will come to you in a lot of ways from something completely unexpected. So I really love this Four of Cups card. And this card, it was done, interestingly, the person who is in it she's submerged in water, which is kind of really going into the depths of your emotional process, really listening to what's making you tick, what's affecting you, what are you feeling? And by diving into or sitting in those feelings, we can then find our answers and find our guidance about what we need to know. So I'm imagining, Debbie, there's something probably that you're looking for an answer to, where you may have been trying to do it from a rational standpoint, sort of more from a figure it out kind of way. And this is really saying more, sit with the feelings, sit with the process, and see where it leads you. I would also say that this is a card that's very much about, instead of focusing on the idea of what are the solutions and the figuring it out, like how am I going to make this better? How am I going to fix this? That a very effective way to be working with this is to be thinking about what would you like the outcome to be? And don't even try to figure out how to get to the outcome, but just start imagining best possible outcomes for you, and spend time in that sort of dreamy, delightful, sort of cozy place, and contemplate what what would be outcomes that you'd love. And one suggestion that I always like to offer is don't think of one best possible outcome. Try to come up with at least 3, if not even 5, 6, 7, 10. Like the more best possible outcomes you can come up with, the more you prime the pump for things, and also the more your creative process is going to open up and guide you and show you the way. And this comes back to what I was originally going to use sort of as a topic for tonight, which is the idea of authentic growth versus following a formula. And that is that when we follow a formula, we're generally so stuck to the rigid path, and following that kind of rigid path doesn't allow for the possibility of creativity, doesn't allow for the fact that we may need to just completely restructure things, because as we all know, life happens and things have a tendency to come up, and formulas don't always accommodate the need for things coming up. I believe wholeheartedly in formulas and in strategy because I am a Capricorn sun with Virgo rising. So I love a good plan, but I also know, as the saying goes, when humans make plans, God laughs. And so I think that there is something so important about having that flexibility and trusting in that organic process, and recognizing that if something is growing in a completely different direction than what we expected it to, it's optimal if we can shift the process. So, okay, so let's see. I have, Terry, would you like me to pull a card for you too? Yes, okay. Let's see. I'm going to shuffle a little bit more. Oh, that's so cool, Debbie. Your very first tarot card. Yay. Well, may it not be your very last. Tarot is a great mirror for looking into your process and figuring out what is making you tick. And I like to think of tarot as not a, this is absolutely going to happen, but more about the idea that this is about likely directions, and also to give us the opportunity to really think about sort of a mirror for ourselves to contemplate, does this feel true to me? Does this not feel true to me? And how can I make choices that are going to really support where I really want to be going? Okay, so next card I'm pulling for Terry. Let's see. Terry, you got the Magician. So, the Magician, in my keyword for the Magician is intention. And the way I look at the Magician, and it's also, it's also about alchemy. So what I think of the Magician is the Magician and the whole idea of as above, so below. So when we can conceive of something in our mind, and when we can conceive of it in spirit, then we can bring it into manifestation and form. And we move through the elements of first starting with the idea of the concept in air, moving into action with fire and taking action to make it happen, then moving into the emotional process of integration in water, and then coming to earth, which is the manifestation of form, and bringing it into being. Now, with the Magician, I like to think of as above, so below, but also as below, so above. So it is also about looking at where in our life may there be something that's a little out of balance, that may be a little bit in need of some adjustment or some shifting, so that we can bring everything back into a place of harmony, so that what is below will then reflect the above, and simultaneously or subsequently will bring things into that physical will allow things to move with harmony and ease. So, and somebody named, I believe, Dolly or D. Haley just joined, so welcome. So, Terry, does this make sense to you? Excellent, excellent. And knowing how hard you've been working on everything, I'm not surprised to see the magician. And it really strikes me that this is just such confirmation of all of your effort, and go you. So, yay, excellent. Absolutely. It's time to bring it into the physical. Absolutely. And especially, I mean, we're coming into this new moon in Pisces in 2 weeks. And personally, I think the new moon in Pisces that's coming, oh, thank you. I'm so glad. Terry just said, love me reading on it too. So thank you. What I was going to say is this new moon in Pisces that's coming in 2 weeks, I really think of that as a time to get our emotional house in order, and really a time to clean up our emotional side of the street. And so the new moon in Pisces, from my standpoint, is not necessarily the time for a launch. But once the new moon moves from Pisces into Aries, which will be coming right after that, like a couple days after the new moon, that's going to be an ideal time for getting things out into the world. Whereas while we're working while we're in 2 weeks, when we come to the new moon in Pisces, that's going to be more about really getting our emotional house in order. Yeah. And when the new moon is going to be in Aries, coming into April, that's when there's going to be just potent, fiery, like get shit done kind of, or get her done kind of energy coming up. So there's going to be, I personally think working the fire moons for any kind of major launch is a lot of times an ideal time for really getting a lot of momentum and a lot of power behind whatever it is that we're seeking to put out into the world. And you're so welcome for that tip. Yeah. And of course, with as the new moon, because with my newsletter, I send out videos with my newsletter that are exclusive just to the newsletter for the new and full moons, talking about how to work with that. So I'll be going into great depth about working that emotional house cleaning for the new moon in Pisces in 2 weeks. And if anybody's interested in signing up, just go to www.modernmedicinelady.com. Oh, your emotions are on a roller coaster. Well, and Mel, I just think that everybody's, I don't know, are you on the west? Are you in the, hi Raz, welcome. So Mel, if you are in the Northern Hemisphere, but particularly, New Zealand, so you're actually dealing with summer. Lucky you. Yeah, up here, I think so many of us are just so worn thin because it's we're coming to the end of the season, and we're going into spring. But in your case, obviously, you're going into autumn, and that's a whole other kind of thing about sort of like getting your ducks in a row, getting your house in order, bringing things into form and everything. But anytime we're going into a full moon, it's a time where people are going to be strongly affected. And so, and also, the front and the back are connected. As the earth is, I believe that we are all cells in one large body, and this earth is being affected right now. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on politically. There's a lot going on with the climate. There's a lot going on with choices that people are making. And I think it affects all of us, and that part of our job is to learn how to remain anchored and grounded and calm despite the things that are happening on this planet. But it's hard not to be affected by it. So I think that sometimes we think that things are really personal, or, and it's all about us. And then we start looking around and discover that everybody is a little bit bajiggity, which that's one of my favorite words for describing just being kind of like a little bit out of balance. Yeah. So, does anybody have any other questions? Raz, I don't know if you stayed because I don't see you. So, but if you are here and you'd like me to read a card for you, I would be glad to do that. Actually, Mel, the Ace of Swords. So Mel just asked the question: would Ace of Swords make sense with the emotions? I would say that probably, I don't know whether you would tend to be somebody who is a figure shit out kind of person, like where you are a very mental or mentally oriented person, where you spend a lot of time, where you spend a lot of time thinking things through. But if anything, I would say that your thought process and the fact that you've been trying to figure out the solutions may actually be getting in your way, because it's like I'm imagining that you're probably having this experience where it's like you're thinking it and thinking it and thinking it. You may be experiencing insomnia. You may be lying in bed trying to imagine outcomes, imagine what you're trying to do. I don't know whether you're by any chance an Aquarian, but in my experience, being the daughter of an Aquarian, I find that they are often people who think a great deal about everything and try to figure stuff out. But what I would say is, Gemini. Well, there you go. So you are also an air sign, and you're going to have that duality of the part of you that totally knows how to have fun, totally knows how to deal with and do things from that place of delightful, playful possibility, and then the other part that's the killjoy that's constantly talking in the back of your mind, trying to convince you of the worst case scenario. In my experience, one of the things I've discovered, I don't know if you're familiar with Bach flower remedies. They are basically spiritual and emotional remedies that are homeopathic remedies for the soul. And Bach flower remedies, which came out, good Lord, many, many years ago, almost 100 years ago, 80 years ago. Anyway, white chestnut is the go-to remedy for mental chatter and for getting that monkey mind to calm the F down and to stop just going and going and going and going and going. So, I highly recommend, a lot of times your natural food stores are going to be carrying the Bach remedies. They're popular all over the planet. They're very easy to access. And specifically, white chestnut is like the go-to for that monkey mind and that mental mindset. So I highly recommend just picking up some white chestnut. And if that doesn't quite feel right to you, there's also a company from California called Flower Essence Services, FES. And they make a whole line of flower essences called FES Quintessentials that are fantastic. I love them. And they have a bunch of ones, including ones that are more about if you're an empath and you're picking up other people's feelings. So you're on the soul path, but stopping the monkey mind. Otherwise you get lost. Absolutely. I mean, the monkey mind is just I think it's such an intense thing for so many of us. I think personally that the real key, well, hi, Sophia. Goodbye, Sophia. I personally think that the key to monkey mind is self-love and acceptance. And I don't know, Mel, if you're familiar with EFT, but it's working with tapping on the meridians, and it's basically using acupuncture points, putting light pressure or tapping on these points on your on places, and then moving through different points, starting on the side of your hand, top of the head, eyebrow points, sides of the eyes, under the nose, under the lip, collarbone points, and then under your arm, and just acknowledging what the feelings are. Yes. Oh, Debbie was saying that I taught her EFT, and it helped her to shut down her monkey mind. Okay, Terry, thank you so much for showing up. It was awesome to share this space with you. Yay. I'm so glad you joined us. So Mel, I think that the first key is even though my monkey mind is driving me crazy right now. And I can't stop thinking about, and you can just name what you're thinking about. I just choose to relax anyway. And so just using it to acknowledge what you're feeling, acknowledge how the monkey mind is working on, is just going a mile a minute and really working with your head. And then acknowledging that, generally you're going to do what's called the setup statement 3 times. So even though I'm having this feeling, I'm going to love myself anyway, or I choose to relax about it anyway. And then we do that 3 times. And then this mental chatter that's going on for me right now that just doesn't want to stop. Oh, another Gemini. I have to say, one of my BFFs is a Gemini. I love you guys. I had a roommate that was a Gemini as well, and she alerted me to one of the things about you guys of where you always bake double recipes and buy 2 of everything, and at least she did. But I really love Geminis. I love your sense of humor. I love your imagination. I love your playfulness. And I also do not envy you the fact that you're constantly dealing with that duality within. But speaking to that duality of the Gemini, the thing I think that you can actually work with, and this is again talking about tapping, is acknowledging the duality and acknowledging the fact that there's this part of me that feels this way, there's this part of me that feels this way. So we can tap on this idea of, even though there is a part of me that feels XYZ, and then there's another part of me that feels XYZ, I choose to love and accept myself anyway. So and if you are interested in learning, if you're not familiar with tapping, I have a YouTube channel with a ton of tapping videos, and also my website, www.modernmedicinelady.com. And at this point, you guys are all familiar with that, so I won't bother continuing. But just check that out if you want to learn a lot more about tapping, because personally, it has been life-changing, amazing for me, just really, really incredible. So I figured I was going to take this first blab to 9 o'clock. I'm wondering if anybody else has any other questions. So I guess Mel just jumped off. So bye-bye, Mel. So Nikki, Debbie, do you guys have any questions? Is there anything in particular you'd like me to pull a card on? What kind of tapping statements would I recommend for things falling on your head feeling? Excellent. Okay, so what I would be inclined to do is I would start by naming the stuff that's falling on your head. So if it was, and I guess I'll say, if it's a circumstantial thing, then it could start by just acknowledging sort of the circumstance of what's going on. But if it's triggering specific emotions, then what you could be doing is addressing those specific emotions and tapping around those specific emotions. So could you give me an example of something that's falling on your head? Your mom being sick. And are you feeling overwhelmed about it? What would you say would be a primary emotion that's going on? That's very understandable, is the fear of her dying. Now, I mean, obviously this is incredibly personal because how we feel about death is so individual. You know, and I mean, as I personally believe that it is one of the things that you do believe she'll be fine and continue on, but I'm imagining you're probably feeling some grief about her. Yeah, yeah. Well, because I know about your worldview, and I have a hunch that you have a very similar way of thinking about things as I do. Maybe, yeah, and that she's not dying right now, you're just thinking about it. Maybe it could be as simple as, even though part of me, even though I've become aware that my mom is going to die someday, because we all die someday. And that's bringing up feelings of sadness, disappointment, despair, fear, loneliness, whatever is coming up. And then I could offer you a reframe for that, which is, even though it will change, and that's just the truth, because it is what it is, I'm open to the possibility that this relationship will be different. But love is stronger than death. And again, like I said, that is so personal, because it's so much about, what do we believe? I believe wholeheartedly in an afterlife. I could tell you guys lots of stories about people on the other side and experiences that have convinced me without a doubt that there is something on the other side. And so the way I really look at it is that the relationship will change. Yeah, that the relationship will change, but it's not over, and that it's really about learning how to adjust to the new relationship. But I think the first step is just sort of saying, so I'm aware of the fact that I'm thinking about this right now, and it's bringing up these feelings, and it's hard for me, and I'm going to love myself through this, and I'm going to love her through this, and I'll see how it unfolds and what happens as a result of it. The other thing, Nikki, that you can do, depending on what's going on with her in terms of her health and her sickness, and also whether, I think that you really want to get her permission to do this, but you can tap, you can do surrogate tapping on her behalf. So you could actually tap for her illness, and you could, if there was something like, if there was physical pain going on, if there was something happening. Now, I am a strong believer in, and my spiritual tradition is that you must have explicit permission to intervene on behalf of anybody. It can be as simple as saying, is it okay if I pray for you? Because how we pray could be tapping, but that you have explicit permission to do energetic intervention before you do. But then you could do intervention work for your mom and tap on what's going on for her, because that could really, really help. Yeah. I'm just reading back to what Debbie had said. Yes, I could totally pull a card on courage for you. Good, I'm glad. Yeah, she'll get it. That's awesome. Yeah, and another suggestion that I have, that I've been doing some work with another friend who's a healer, amazing, amazing healer. My friend Carrie Mitchell, she's in Colorado in Boulder, and her business is called Strawberry Laughter, and she and I have been doing this work on healing the ancestral lines, and particularly the matrilineal lines, and going back in. There was a Marin, when Britt Bulnick of In Arms Coaching, is who you guys both know, did that interview with Marin, and she talked about the pain body, women connecting on the pain body versus the light body, and how incredibly powerful the idea of the pain body, and the way that as women we have been relating to each other through our suffering and through sharing our sadness and sharing our pain for for generations. And so what we started doing, my friend Carrie and I started doing, was actually working with going back into the matrilineal line of light and following it back until we could find the spark of light again. And in my case, it was like I was way back in Ireland, and everybody was just miserable, and just like long suffering, miserable in cold, damp huts. And it actually took me going way, way, way back. Like I had to go back in the DNA to other parts of my ancestral line in order to get to a place where the line was content and happy and joyful, and then bring that fire and bring that light and bring that love forward into the generations. And the thing that's absolutely amazing is that I've seen some incredible incredible results, not just for myself, but for also other women in my family line after we did this particular piece of reparation. So that would be something you could do, is really journey back on the matrilineal line and just keep it, and it can be both sides of the matrilineal line, but basically you're going on the matrilineal DNA lines, and just going back until you find the spark of love and light, and then bring it back forward into today. Okay, so Debbie, I'm going to pull a card. Yes, yeah. I remember my mom from a convent, actually. But yeah, so you can, and the thing is, it's just so powerful to go back and heal those matrilineal lines, because it affects all of our generations. It affects the ones that are behind us, and then the ones that are in front of us too. Okay, so Debbie, I'm pulling this card for you about courage. Oh, I'm so glad. Courage. Okay, you got the Tower card, which and it's reversed, which is kind. So the Tower is the way I think of the Tower is that it is about shattering all of our assumptions about what we thought was true, shattering all of our ideas about what we thought was the way things were going to be going and how things could be. The Tower is sort of the idea of originally coming from like the Tower of Babel, and the idea of language that is not true, is not authentic, is not real, can cause more confusion than it can ultimately serve. And so I would say that you're asking about courage and the Tower, I would say buckle your seatbelt. It's probably going to be a bit of a bumpy ride right now, because there's going to be some clearing out of the things that are no longer serving you. I would imagine the other part of this is that probably you've been starting to set more boundaries, you've been starting to set more limits, that you've been starting to really look at what matters to you. And some of this is about the fact that you're no longer tolerating shit that you would tolerate before. And so with the Tower card, it really is about bringing everything up to the surface in order to shift it and to clear it and to heal it. The Tower card is one of those necessary evils. I don't want to say evils, but it's one of those necessary cards. It's such an important card in terms of our growth, in terms of our transformation. And it's also one of those cards where it's like, if, as the saying, there's an old saying that sort of, it's like, you know, if you don't do the work will do you. And I really think that the Tower is that kind of card where it's saying, you know, whether you like it or not, you're here, and the growth is required, and the change is required, the restructuring is required, the redefining is required, the looking at things in a whole new way is required. And you get to decide whether you're going to resist it and have it do you, which for many people manifests in physical health issues, manifests in certain kinds of crises, manifests in even like in my particular case, one of the things that I've noticed, like there's sort of dead giveaways. One of them, when I was younger, I would cause car accidents. Like that was the way that I would cause myself to restructure. When I was at a crisis point, I'd get myself into a car accident. And then as I got older and I got a little bit more grounded in the process, I would lock myself out of my car, and or I'd run out of gas. And so there were certain things that would happen where I'd just be like, oh my goodness, here I am again. But I really think that when the Tower card comes up, it's really saying you have a choice. You can take a deep breath and accept that it's going to sting a little as you go through this transformation, because you are growing and transforming and shifting, and just allow yourself to ride the wave and ride the momentum and ride the current, ride the path that you're on, which will ultimately take you to the next step, which is purification and renewal and the healing of the star and coming into your guidance and coming into your light. But the only way to get there is to go through it. And it's sort of like the Tower card is absolutely the only way out is through. And I always used to say when I was reading a lot with these cards was that it's you can't go over it, you can't go under it, you can't go around it, you're just going to have to go through it. So I fortunately, you've got a lot of support, and you know, we're all around to cheer you on through this process. And it's also, resistance is futile, but the less you resist it, the faster and more swift it will be to transform and to shift. So you know, I think, like, suck it up, buttercup, buckle your seatbelt, and take a deep breath and just let yourself ride through it. And the card that I pulled for, yeah, bumpy road has started, you're buckled in, good. Card I pulled for the secondary sort of an oh, by the way, in regards to this is the Moon card. And the Moon card is all about what is going on underneath the surface that's making you tick. You know, what is the unconscious? What's happening deep below that surface? The Moon is so much about like the subconscious and the way that it's driving our bus, and recognizing all of those deep, deep, deep patterns that are underneath the surface that are influencing and affecting us, and learning how to access it so we can use it for intuition as opposed to having it be the part of us that causes us to sabotage. So hopefully that made some sense. So Nikki, do you have any questions before we? Oh, excellent. I'm so glad, Debbie. This has been so fun, you guys. Thank you so much for showing up. I was like, oh my God, am I going to create this blab? And yes, excellent, Nikki. Thank you. I'm so glad. I was like, am I going to create this blab? And like, nobody's going to show up. And so I'm just delighted that you guys all came and that you were here, and that this got to be so much fun. Just so much fun. Oh my God, Nikki, I'm just so glad you did too. Thank you so much. I'm really glad you were both here. This was just such an incredible delight. Yeah, and I'm planning to, aside from Mondays when things are happening, my plan is to basically be here for sort of Manifesting Mondays. Manifesting Monday lives from 8 to 9 every Monday from here on in until who knows what happens. So, oh my goodness, it has just been an absolute delight to spend time with both of you, and woohoo, like rock on, sisters. And I am so glad that we are in places where I get to watch you guys grow. Yeah, blessings to you too. So I'm thinking, unless one of you has a question, you know, another question, it seems like it would be a good time to sort of call it a night. And again, I am going to make one more plug for we've got the full moon in Virgo right now, and we can work it for self-care. So I guess I'll leave you with the question of, how are you going to take care of yourself? What are you going to do that could be, what nice gesture can you do for yourself that will really nurture and feed you between now and when the moon goes over into Libra tomorrow? So I'm going to just ask you that question, and hold on for 1 second, and I'll let you guys know exactly when the moon transitions into Libra. So, you know, as a gesture of kindness to yourself, I would say just really taking this time to give yourself tomorrow the moon goes into Libra at 5:41 p.m. So you have between now and 5:41 p.m. to do something super nurturing and nourishing and kind and sweet and nice for yourself. And I'm going to do the same. You're going to do some dancing. That sounds awesome. That sounds wonderful. I suspect I'm probably going to be buying myself some more lilies. I am a massive fan of lilies, and these ones are about a week old, so it's going to be time for some new ones soon. And also a green smoothie is in my not terribly distant future. So, oh, extra long showers with yummy soaps. I have a total soap fetish. I totally know what you're talking about. I love good soap and socks, but you know. Anyway, I am so grateful you both showed up. Thank you so much for being here. It has been such a pleasure, and until we meet again, peace. Thank you.